Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for coming to us and joining us for I think going to be a very exciting talk from Monica. So Monica is coming to us from Mexico, actually. It's kind of cool that we're able to, have people from all over to give talks to us. So I'm really excited about that. So I invited Monica to give us, this talk. I think in part, so our topic this quarter is kind of COVID and anything COVID and everything is COVID. And I really wanted her to kind of talk to us about her experience in organizing what I consider to be a really, really great conference. It's kind of my home conference, the Ubicomp conference, and we have a bunch of the organizers here today with us as well. And so I really wanted her to kind of share her experience, what it was like to organize it. I think she's going to tell us things that went really well and things that probably didn't go well. And I'm very curious with what that's going to be. And so, Monica, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Edward. Hola. Hola, amigos. Hablo español. But I'm going to talk in English with a reminder of the talk. So thank you so much for the invitation and the introduction. I will be talking about the lessons learned organizing Ubicomp ISWC 2020. Oops. Okay. So I will give this talk on behalf of my two super awesome and incredible co-organizers. I think you know one of them pretty well, Nadir. He does not need introduction. He's this super motivator and problem solver, amazing individual that do not take a no for an answer and push you to the edge so you can get the job done on time. So I was happy to work with them. And also Christoph, who is this super sharp individual that always has the right suggestion and has this amazing ability to truly listen to you. And of course, the group of all these motivator and hard workers, researchers that helped to put together this conference. I was truly lucky to work with all of them. I have to say that I did not share this talk with Nadir and Christoph or with any of other organizers. And I do that, with a purpose because I don't know if they will disagree or not, but I wanted to discuss some of the things that they might don't want me to say. So I want to make clear that this is my perception of things and my reflection of how things happen. And at times it might look kind of anecdotal. So it is good that Nadir is here so he can help me answer all the difficult questions. Feel free to redirect questions to him. Just kidding. So anyway, the way I put together this talk, first I will describe how was Ubicomp and ISWC organized and what was it like to attend to Ubicomp and ISWC in its virtual edition. Second, I will share some numbers and results from a survey of participant experience, and then I will illustrate major lessons learned, particularly 5, and I will close with 3 takeaways. My journey on organizing Ubicomp ISWC started around August 2018, when Nadir and I decided to put together the week for Ubicomp. I remember my baby was 4 months old. Yes, I know I am truly crazy. I was hormonal and I was not thinking straight when we put together this bid. Anyway, we got the news that we won the bid on late December 2018. And from there, we started this journey together. This journey resulted to be both difficult and risky. First, organize the most important and the biggest conference on ATM ubiquitous computing is difficult. Second, organize Ubicomp and ISWC for the first time in Mexico and in Latin America within the context of an undeveloped country or whatever that means, risky. But organize Ubicomp and ISWC for the first time in its virtual version and in the middle of a pandemic, that was difficult and risky. So the main problem here is that we know very little about virtual conference organization and their impact on the overall academic and social networking experience of their participants. So of course, our academic brains saw an opportunity here and we wanted to know, will it work? I will hopefully answer this question at the end of this talk. But before we start on the difficult and the risky part of this journey, let's start with the storytelling part of it. So organizing Ubicomp and ISWC not only takes a village of individuals, but also takes a lot of time. This graph shows the number of messages we shared on Slack and in general chair's email. As you can see, Nadir's email, of course, surpasses the number of emails Christoph and I wrote. Much more other type of communication from our personal accounts, mobile phones, and weekly video conference calls, not including here, but it kind of gives you a general overview. As the graph shows, at one point, we were exchanging over 4,000 messages per month, an average of 130 messages per day. And when being lazy, we share from 300 to 6 messages per month, and that's a lot. But what is very interesting here is that you can see extremely active and inactive, somewhat active periods of time that do actually tell a story of how we put together and follow up on tasks. So we kind of divide our task load into 4 major phases. So the first one was learning and demanded us for learn how ACM wanted to organize the conference. During this time, ACM sent to us a link with a bunch of documents of ACM policies and processes as a mandatory reading. We had to learn their processes. We needed to figure it out how to run and plan the conference based on ACM terms and do it their way. We had to learn what ACM wanted and how they wanted it. Then we moved into the conception phase, and this involved a lot of brainstorming and with the rest of the organizers and reviewing and updating current programs and other programs we wanted to include into the conference. And then we move into the production, which involved the translation of these ideas in the brainstorming phase into actual requirements involving designing the contracts, budget updates, and approvals, and negotiating with providers. And then we finish it up with execution that involved a lot of training, conducting dry run tests, and damage control. So going back to our communication graph, what is very scary of the beginning of our journey, as you can see, for the first 5 months, there was this big chunk of nothing, silence. We were not talking to each other. Why? Because there was not much to say. We were reading, and yes, did I say reading? We were trying to figure it out, our next step, and what ACM wanted. We got lost in this uncountable of useless information ACM sent to us. It took us close to 2 months to read all this useless information and did not help at all. What did help was to meet past general chairs, meet with steering committee members and other conference leaders of other ACM conference to kind of gain a knowledge of what will be the best way for us to plan a successful conference. After we sort of figured things out, we went through all these phases iteratively. We frequently juggle between conception and production, but what is very curious about this graph is that we went through this entire process twice, as you can see here in the beginning. And why we did this twice? Because COVID-19 happened. And we were planning a physical conference that may never even happen. So all what we did so far was not very useful for the rest of the time. And we had to switch to a fully conference in 4 months. So we rapidly juggled between learning and production, no time for conception, and we dived into execution where all messages truly exploded. And as you can see at the very end, a lot of stress, anxiety, and no sleeping during this time for us. So after we decided we will go fully virtual, we set the following goals for the virtual conference. We wanted to keep low rates. After all, we wanted to be generous to the community, given the situation we were all living in, and we wanted to reduce potential reimbursement claims. This was an experiment, so we didn't know what it was going to go. We wanted to present the content as interactive and simple as possible and increase the engagement and discussion among peers. We in particular had in mind the short lifespan of attendees usually have when attending to a virtual conference. We also wanted to provide spaces and experiences to elicit offline interactions and give attendees a glimpse of those face-to-face interactions that are of so much value when attending to a physical conference. So we had to move fast, and we discussed all these goals and our plan with ACM and submitted all the paperwork again that ACM needed us to submit. And we announced it to websites and to social media posts our plan, and we kept working. But then, after 2 months of working in this new plan, we received an email from ACM informing us that they changed the way they will calculate the overhead. And we sadly learned that we basically had no money to organize the virtual conference, as our total projected income was less than the overhead from SIG and SIG Mobile. So what would you do with no time, no previous knowledge, and no money? We changed everything that used to work on a physical conference. That's what we did. Except for pre-conference activities from which we don't have too much control, and this is what resulted. So first, the infrastructure we used, we bought, configured, and used so many platforms. We redesigned the website so it could use WordPress to ease its maintenance, and we made sure it was accessible. To support the conference, we used Whova and Zoom. Whova is an award-winning app that made virtual events simple and interactive. It provides support for session streaming, video replay, virtual booths, and so many other things. To supplement Whova, we use GatherTown to support the social program. GatherTown is a video calling space that lets multiple people hold separate conversations in parallel, walking in and out those conversations as easily as if you were face-to-face. Because our team was scattered in 3 continents and in different time zones, we depended a lot on asynchronous messaging. In particular, we chose Slack as our primary communication platform, but we supplemented it with WhatsApp messages, email, and weekly video conference calls. We used Hootsuite as a social media platform to facilitate parallel posting on multiple accounts in Twitter, Facebook, and other social media. The conference lasted 4 days, 3 days to cover authors' talks and some of the keynotes. And we had a reflection day with an emphasis on discussion and social activities. Each day was composed of 2 slots of time, including 2 hours for the academic program, followed by 3 hours of social activities. So we kind of shortened the space of the time of a typical conference. As you can see in the image, there is not a clear overlap around the world. So we set up the time zone to New York time, as it offers a slot of time that was not overall terrible for the rest of the world. Still, there were some slots that did not work at all for either Asia or Europe. The social program involved a combination of a structured and open-ended tasks. A structured task in our social program involved Ask Me Anything and industry tables featuring senior researchers of the Ubicomp and ISWC community to discuss interesting topics, and team building tasks, including, like, for example, mystery hunts or other mystery challenges. Open-ended activities including happy hours, a cocktail reception, and live karaoke. We developed a virtual space, as you can see in the image. This is the main foyer of the conference, of the virtual space in Gathertown, mimicking a convention center and with some aspects of Cancun. The idea was to bring back the serendipity of running into friends and strangers as if you were in face-to-face. The rooms were divided in 3 main foyers, as you can see in the image. The main foyer on the top included an auditorium and other rooms where participants can download academic content or attend to meetings and academic discussions. The terrace foyer on the right was equipped with social spaces, included the beach, a bar, and a restaurant, and some spaces for private gatherings. And the services foyer in the bottom included other goal-oriented rooms like the SD and the organizers lounge, the family room, and the kite riding room. So let's see a video showcasing what was it like to interact in Ubicomp.town, and you might recognize some of the actors here.
Gathertown, it's all about proximity. So the found interaction distance is a 6-letter radius that you can change. When you are near someone, a video call will automatically start. On the top, you can see who you are talking to. If you walk away, you will lose connection and you have to reach back to continue talking. This interaction will activate a private video calling isolated from others within range. In this example, Danilo, Tommy, Jen, and Monica can talk to each other, but people near them cannot talk to them or hear them. Tables are scattered throughout the town, and you can have a party of 2, 5, or more. Some rooms have podiums. A moderator on the podium can broadcast the video call to all the towners who are in the room. Posters are activated by proximity. To talk to a poster presenter, make sure that you are inside the red square. When the poster has a green glow, this indicates that you can press X to open the poster. The Judith and the DC room work similar.
Guys, I just found out he's now the rabbit, and he's asking for dos cervecitas, por favor. Frustrating, that is por favor. Salud. Salud.
Bye-bye.
So that was kind of the social program and the fun part of the conference. So the academic program included 6 keynotes, 1 following the traditional presentation format, and we asked the rest of ones to keep their talks short to give more room for a discussion among them. We asked for all authors for a teaser video to be publicized before the conference through the website and social media. Authors' talks were divided in 3 tracks for 3 days, with the goal of providing cross-cutting and unified discussions across the whole community in a single track. Our program chairs changed the presentation format in what they call spotlights. The structure of a spotlight involved the presentation of 10 papers back to back with 10 minutes of pre-recorded talks for each paper and no questions. And then the session closed with a 30-minute moderator panel discussion, and Q&A was supported by UBA. And the Zoom call was configured as a webinar. The teaser video and other content for each paper was available in Wooba as well. The poster and demo sessions were held in GatherTown. We put together a special room with all the posters around through topic, and they were color labeled. And the interaction mimicked an in-person one where you can have a glance of the content by standing from a distance or engage in the discussion if you step into an interaction zone delimited by a square. When stepping into the square, you can hear the speaker and your question will be broadcasted to all the individuals that were inside of the square as well. For the gadget show, we put together a special room. We call it the flag room with the Mexican flag in it, and with a podium where everyone can go into the podium and bring their gadgets and present what they wanted to discuss to the entire audience. We also have a student volunteer as a cameraman that will follow presenters to live stream the content being presented. Now that you know what it was like to be in our shoes as an organizer or also as an attendee for Ubicomp ISWC, let's discuss what the community thought about this experience. So the truth was that our plan was a gamble. All-time low registrations at a bargain of $25 should make registering easy, but attendance should be high. Although the costs for a virtual event are much less, they are not insignificant due to publishing fees, software, money already spent for organizing the physical conference, and of course the ACM overhead. As you can see in the graph, comparing the number of registered individuals with those registered in the previous year conference in Ubicomp 2019 in London, 2 weeks before the conference, this was September 1st, our plan was not working. So we put together advertising videos and starting publicizing the conference with some help from our social media and publicity chairs. And the publicity was truly incredible, as you can see of some of these Facebook posts. But we also gave authors the opportunity of having both one junior and one senior researcher in the panel to participate in the discussion for each paper. We encourage seniors to register, as we noticed most of the registrations from authors of the papers were from students. And there was not only that registrations were low, but also the money was low because most of these registrations were of $25. And 1 week before the conference of September 24th, we finally reached our projections. And yet eventually, after some 10 weeks, in the first day of the conference, we outperformed the numbers from the past conference, which so far was one of the most successful ones, which was Ubicomp in London 2019. Having a virtual event with low fee resulted in the number of attendees being at a record high for Ubicomp ISWC, with an increase of 20% from previous conference, and an increase in the student attendees especially. Students are so important for us because these are future researchers in this field and can show you the potential growth of our community. We covered a large set of nations with attendees with 41 countries with large numbers of attendees from USA, Japan, Europe, and China especially. Attendance to sessions were also pretty high. The biggest workshop had close to 300 participants, and at one point, we reached more than 1,000 attendees during plenaries. And attendance to sessions ranked from 300 to close to 600 participants. Beyond numbers, the quality and topics of the sessions was pretty engaging and enjoyable as well. These clouds show the frequency-based topic modeling of all captions of the pre-recorded talks for all sessions of the day. We spent most of the first day talking about participants, as you can see the first cloud, studies and data. The second day, the graph in the middle, we spent most of the time talking about users, systems, and features, and of course, we talk about data. And in the last day, the one in the right, we kind of put everything together, talking about technical and user-centered topics. And of course, we talk about user and data. And although 10% of our attendees only answered the survey, which is around 84 individuals, our results show attendees were overall satisfied with the conference. As you can see the graph in the left, that is overall satisfaction for the virtual conference. And with using Wooba and Zoom, the graph in the middle, and they were also overall satisfied when using GatherTown, the graph in the right. If you notice the one that in green, close to 70% were kind of positive about their satisfaction with the virtual conference, and close to 60% were positive about the infrastructure. It is interesting to note that close to 15% were very negative about Ubicomp.town. And although qualitative data show participants were more excited about Ubicomp.town than anything else, it showed like there's like this kind of love-hate relationship with Ubicomp.town, and most of participants said that they have technical issues when joining with Ubicomp.town. So from this experience, we learned so much, and we have so many suggestions, but for simplicity, I group our lessons learned in 5. The first lesson is keep it simple. This conference involved so many preparation beforehand. And beyond the training, we had to prepare an instruction manual and several videos to understand the dynamic of the spotlight session and the Ubicomp.town activities. So this was too much. Too much structure made things complicated, and for most of the superstructured social challenges, very few individuals got involved, for example. So individuals do not read a manual to understand, or should not read a manual to understand what it is expected for them to do in a conference. And of course, in trying to make things simpler, we are making the organization more difficult. So you will need as much bodies as you can have to help you during a session. We had too many roles during a session. We had a session chair, the SV to handle Q&A, an SV playing the pre-recorded talks, a backup SV, and one organizer. And still, it was not enough. We encountered problems during the session. Another thing that made things pretty complicated was the lack of awareness of what was about to happen. Like those social cues we have during a physical conference, like clapping at the end of the talk that will signal a transition. So we miss all that. We need to keep in mind we are kind of producing a live show here, and we need to learn like TV production practices and give this awareness of what is happening in the room or in the session. Finally, something horrible happened to us on the first minute of the conference. During the opening plenary, with more than 1,000 individuals connected to Wooba crashed. And there was nobody at the office to help us cope with the problem. It was 6 a.m. in the morning, Pacific time, and Wooba support kind of forgot they were running a virtual event. And the world, the main lesson here is that the world does not sleep. This conference needed 24/7 support. One potential solution to all this is to leverage the resources and the practices each laboratory around the world already has to put together seminars like the one we're having like this. So we need to choose major universities and use them as hoops or proxies to share the load and organize this, and to share the load of organizing this. The second lesson learned is to propose an incentive model. Beyond the academic recognition and opportunities of networking, there is not a clear benefit to volunteer in helping with the organization of such events. even as a student. ACM courtesy policy forbids conference leaders to use the income of the conference to support the SV and the DC programs, or to partially pay for the registration of some of the volunteers that might don't have a paper, might don't have to go to the conference for another thing but organizing it. Also, although most volunteers are willing to work the full year, maintaining long-term engagement, especially when work gets to demanding, it is very difficult. So organizers start missing crucial meetings and may be burned out by the time of the conference. This heavily limits their experience, which was their first motivation to start to volunteer in the first place. Although it was nice to hear that more students registered, it was sad to realize that very few seniors from our community registered, even though their student cost only $25. So we think it's not a money issue here. This might be an indicator of the lack of clear incentives or advantages for senior researchers to show up or to attend to Ubicomp and speak. A potential solution to all this is to be more explicit on the academic recognition and networking or the benefits volunteers will get and students. Like simple things like make sure volunteers will have an endorsement or LinkedIn, or a seminar on a class or something like this will help. And also ask ACM to remove these restrictions and enable conference leaders to decide who they might support. The next lesson, lesson number 3, is learn about online tools. There are tons of applications that make this process of selecting one or a few pretty overwhelming. We have WUBA, we have Zoom, we have Blue Jeans, we have Meet, we have Open, ACM, Koala, GatherTown, Umbrella, and so on. And there is some overlap in the functionality that may result confusing to participants when using more than one. So for example, we have booths, virtual booths on WUBA, and we also have virtual booths on GatherTown. So attendees were kind of confused to where to go to see the booths. And also participants may feel expert in using one of these apps. But the truth is that they might not use this app in a traditional way. For example, even though this was a sub-webinar that talks in Ubicomp, question must be posted on WUBA. So there was a difference in how to manage Q&A as a traditional webinar. This might result in confusion as the app is sort of hacked differently to meet the needs of the conference. Or worst, they might not know how to use an app like GatherTown, and they might know how to use it. They have to download it and consult how to use it, and this was not something participants really like. The thing is that most of these apps are not flexible enough to match the program, and we needed to invest a lot of time in developing new software to make these tools better match what we needed. And with each new app, the cost may rapidly increase. And remember that most of these apps charge per user per day. And each app will also open another communication channel. So there were times when we were sending messages through email, WUBA, and GatherTown. And for those individuals that read only one message, it was okay. But for some of them were bothered for the cross-posting, really the same messages across all the platforms. So we need to take advantage of a potential solution is to take advantage of the applications users are already using, even though these are not the video conference platforms, but at least we know They have installed in their phone, they know how to use it, and they are comfortable with those apps. So we need to ask users to do less and learn less and use this entire experience and interaction with different platforms. Fourth, drive for content. Although maybe obvious, we have spent a lot of time putting together interesting activities for people to join into the conference. Especially in the social program, we included exciting things like treasure hunts, and people do not care about this. They truly only gravitate towards information. If there is something new and exciting, desirable, featuring a senior member of the community, they will show up. And not much more for happy hours and fun things to do. And the goal for showing up will be different for a senior than a student or a junior researcher. So we provided some of these through the Ask Me Anything tables and the multimodality discussion option with session rooms that were available in GatherTown after the paper session. So authors and the audience can go and continue discussion offline. And also the beach was also a nice place people love to hang out. So we need to find ways to offer multiple presentation formats, different discussion spaces, and enable authors to disseminate their content in multiple ways, including videos, FaceTime, pre-recorded talks, infographics, and so on. When you can produce this much digital information, your opportunities are endless. Finally, lesson number 5, and this is the last one. Beware of flexibility. You might think flexibility is an advantage, and yes, it does have advantages, but it also has a tons of disadvantages. Participants do not need to deal with travel arrangements. So in a sense, it was easy for them to register, and it was more easy to find keynotes or speakers, even last minute. However, most participants ended up doing exactly that, doing last minute decisions. And this complicated the organization and made it difficult for us to plan with sufficient time in advance. And although people do commit to conference to a virtual conference, they cannot shut down their lives. So most participants were heavily preoccupied with commitments at home and at work and could not fully focus on the conference as it usually happens when you are in a physical one. Finally, so keep in mind, most individuals will like to preserve some of the practices of the physical conference. This is why we like to do conference so much. And it's very difficult to mimic those practices in a virtual environment due to the ability of individuals to rapidly disengage, and there needs to be inflexible due to different time zones. So our solution will be to inform individuals, sensitize the community to this is about to happen, and prepare in advance and make them to commit earlier. So through all this process, I have 3 takeaways for you. The first one is that organize a virtual event takes more time and more effort than a physical one. And it is both difficult and risky. And the process is super, super, super messy. It's not straightforward, and it adds a lot of stress and anxiety to organizers. The second one is that you don't come out of this process without regrets. My biggest one will be working with ACM. Although I have heard multiple complaints through the years from different well-respected and known researchers in the community, I have never imagined things were this bad. I can't say anything positive about ACM. And I'm only talking about them because I think we need to increase awareness of what is happening inside this organization. ACM needs to be accounted for so many things that go wrong when organizing conferences. including the additional stress and anxiety they put through conference leader. It's not a minor issue here. It is beyond like, oh, they are not truly helping to organize a conference. They are truly obstructing its organization. They never meet the deadlines. They frequently lie. Their requests are unreasonable. They do not take accountability of their mistakes and abuses. They are, for most of the time, missing in action. They are driven by money, and the list goes on. In summary, I would like to describe my interaction with ACM in 4 words. ACM is extremely unprofessional. They are rigid, R. They are abusive, A. And they are disrespectful, D. So I'm rewriting the right adjective here. But I don't want to end on a negative note here. Let's imagine a better world where we can remove ACM from the equation. And this is the final takeaway. Did it work? I don't think I can answer this question, and perhaps I will never know. So I would like to rewrite it. Was it worth it? Yes. Yes, 100% yes. I can answer if the conference was a success or no, but it was definitely a success for me. I had the privilege to create long-lasting relationships with colleagues and friends who I admire and respect. And remember, we did all this in 4 months with no previous knowledge and no money. I think this is pretty impressive and unheard of. I will never forget this experience. It made me grow both as a human and as a researcher. I learned so much, and believe it or no, and believe it or no, I had fun, yay. We have so much stories to tell, and in my mind, this is success. So what is next for Ubicomp ISWC? Next year, it will be a virtual event, 2021. Please all you join. And 2022 is still Cancun, yay! And
your slide situation went black. Is that on purpose?
Yeah, it's done.
Okay, got it.
Thanks, Ed. And yes, Nadia and I and Christoph, we're still organizing, and most of the team is still on board. So to get you all excited about the conference, oops, sorry, I don't know what's happening. Forgot to put the disturb mode, not disturb mode. Let's see a video of what is about to happen in Cancun, if this happens. So I hope to see you, all of you, in Ubicomp 2022 in Cancun. And thank you so much for your time. And thanks to each of these researchers. It was truly an incredible team, an amazing experience. And now I'll be happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Monica. I'm really like, I really like how, honest and like, I think sometimes we really do need to reflect on kind of like, how organizations really do need to work with, those who are actually executing, right? The ones that are on the ground trying to make it happen, and they really do need to communicate and figure figure out what are their needs, right? I mean, that's the core of it. And so I'm very glad to hear you really be honest about that and talk about that. That's great. People, questions, let's do it.
I have a question.
Go.
So right now, like the pandemic has shifted all of our habits to be in front of the computer, which has definitely benefited the community of live streamers already. So I'm wondering if for like big conferences like this, we're just gonna start to draw in on the practices that live streamers are currently doing, whether we can take their professional skills and adapt it to like university type lectures and so forth. And will this become the more mainstream way to have conferences?
It's a very interesting question. And I think it was one of the lessons that we learned. It's like, it was sad that we did not leverage in that. So we did not realize that individuals were already doing that. And remember, this was very early in the pandemic phase. So we were not really, we didn't know. So we did everything from scratch. And I think that was a huge mistake. We all are using these tools. We all are, like you said, doing the live streaming. So let's put the responsibility on you guys, and you are the one who are that to do that in the first place, and that will is the organization part of this process, and also make things more satisfying and more enjoyable and interactive for the attendees. So yes, I totally, this was the first thing. And I think we discussed this with next general chairs, these hubs things, right? So, contact major universities or some universities that are willing to serve as hubs, and they can, do the live stream for them. They might, I don't know, maybe if things got better, they can even get together and do the live stream together. And so partially hybrid in some of these hubs, instead of concentrated everything in one place. And if you see, what we did was a huge risk. So we depended entirely from the SB. So the one who had the videos, the internet connection was the SB's internet connection. So it was in their computer. So I think it went well, but I think it was a huge risk and it could have gone terribly wrong. So yes, yeah, I completely agree with you. We need to leverage the practices, the skills, and the resources individuals and major universities have to do live streaming. Yeah.
Thank you. I did have a follow-up question if you're willing to answer.
Yeah.
So a lot of conferences and presentations require a certain awareness of communication skills. I'm wondering if we will have to start developing new ways of delivering our presentations, or a different type of how we talk to people, in terms of we're not able to use body language so much. Now it's just verbal and media. Would we have to start developing like new types of courses and lecture series that help the new leaders come into contact with new communication skills?
Yeah. I think this is a very interesting question, and yes, it's very different. It's very different to meet in person than to meet through this platform. And I think, the other thing is that the different platforms that we have to express ourselves. So we have, video, we can do it pre-recorded, we can do it live, we can do infographics or share images or share a document. So and it also helps to people who are not native speakers in English, that you can prepare in advance and ease your anxiety and your stress of talking in face or live. but it also is not as engaging if you are not live and you're, you have a pre-recorded talk. So,
Exactly.
so yes, it's not only about you have to produce this content differently. It's a different set of skills because you are not face to face, but actually you need to produce your content in different heterogeneous information and share through different communication channels. And this is how it's going. Now, what is the risk here is, users who prefer traditional things, right? And with age, to be honest, it's like you prefer to do the way you are comfortable to do things. So I can imagine a lot of individuals that do not have, for example, Twitter or social media, and they will not see your post there, or they don't like a video and they prefer, to read the paper. So it's to find a balance between, the new world and a new way to produce information while preserving some of the practices that have been so successful so far. So that would be the challenge there.
Muchas gracias, amiga.
Thank you.
Hey, Monica.
Hi, Danilo.
Let me see. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
I
Perfect.
just changed my gear on the fly, so it was a little bit troubling here. Thank you so much for the talk. And I was involved in some of the process, so I definitely come from a very biased perspective. But I love like your reflection on running Ubicomp. I really like the chart looking at the emails, because sometimes when you're like in the middle of the storm and you have to decide and do things very quickly, and later, like, I have like PhD proposal and other things happening, you never stop to reflect. And when you stop to reflect, you can easily point out, okay, we could have done X better, we could have done Y better. But honestly, I think that overall, like I went to ISMAR, I went to UIS, I went to a bunch of other conferences. I think that we did really well with Ubicomp. And as you said, like people will look for things that give them information. So there's this the pros and cons of like online conferences. You're just talking about the awesome pros. If you are not a native speaker, you can pre-record your talk. And that's great because you can practice, you can make sure you're speaking the words correctly and people will understand you. It's great because we don't have to travel. I went to so many conferences this year and I wouldn't have done that otherwise, because I would need to pay for flights, pay for hotels and whatnot. However, when I'm in one of those conferences, I'm also not there physically, and I'm at home and I have conflicting priorities, where like maybe something might happen in my house and I have to stop going around. So I understand why people didn't really engage with our social activities, as they were not like related to the information they were there for. But at the same time, I do have to note that at night there were so many people that would just stick around. So there's also the situation where someone has already been at home for such a long time and has been there isolated, and they might be looking for like a social space, and that's like a nice community. Your social space is people at Ubicomp, smart researchers. There's no better social space, right? So I don't know. I just want to say, like, I really like the reflection, and I think that we did pretty well, given the fact that things had to be decided such last minute with no funding and whatsoever.
Yeah, thanks, Danilo. Yes, I do agree. I mean, it is hard for me to say because I was the one who co-organized it with Nadir and Christoph, of course. But I think, like I said, in the end, it was very impressive what we did, given the conditions, and we got a lot of nice feedback. And I think the conference went pretty well. But still, I think the major problem, and you can see in the graph, is that we did not have a lot of time to reflect. When having no time, these 4 months that we had, and like I said, we skipped the conception phase, and that brainstorming with organizers, it's so important. And we couldn't do that for the virtual conference because we did not have time. So we had to produce something. And I think that, you know, most of their mistakes that, to be honest, I feel they were very, very few. But the mistakes that we have, or the things that we couldn't do different, were because we did not take the time to reflect and to, you know, brainstorm of, you know, what to do better with that, but we did not have a lot of time. And I think, you know, with your comment regarding, you know, the time, that there are some times at night that you are just finding somebody to talk to. I think I do agree, and that is why we place the social program at different times, so they all have this space. But I think we discussed it. I think the problem is that it is kind of awkward to socialize with these environments. And I think, you know, we discussed, Daniela, Tommy, and I, Nadia, we discussed all this, that, you know, when we were doing the live karaoke thing, we were actually singing karaoke. And there was, Tommy said they were their neighbors who arrived, and he was like singing by himself in his room. And it was like, it was the weird, right? Because you are not in that context. And, you know, individuals around you will not have the context of what is happening through your computer or through your virtual escape. So at sometimes these interactions are not very organic, if I can say it.
Oh yeah, there's like a
so awareness, not only for us, but awareness into, you know, our environment will help us to make this as normal as possible, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think people have trailed out, but I think we're at 5. Does anyone else want to ask some final questions, or are we good? Or if Monica has questions for us?
Nadir, I don't know if you would like to say something. Nadir, to be honest, you know, that's when Edward invited me, I said like, oh, Nadir should do this talk. Like Nadir was the one who did everything, to be honest. Christoph and I just say yes.
That's not true. That is not true. I have a question. I told Edward that, you know, I didn't have to ask him. I want to leave the opportunity to others, but I can, you know, we are over time, so people feel free to leave. But one question that is more for both of us than for you, but I want to know what you think about it. You thought about this shift, and some of the questions were about that, this shift in opportunities that virtual conferences like this allow. We didn't talk about many other opportunities that it opened for people that are, you know, have other commitments, you know, don't have the money to travel, cannot travel because of physical or accessibility problems, et cetera, et cetera. So this is really a great way for people to start attending and enjoying conferences and events that they wouldn't be able to do it. However, personally, I am looking forward so much to go to real conferences. And I know that the community is divided. So there are a lot of people that would like to do it, a lot of people that will not like to do it. So my question for you is for Ubicomp, but also for other conferences. What does the future look like? We kind of know that hybrid conferences don't quite work, but how do we support both? So how do we get people that wants to have the in-person experience and are able to do it, maybe not for every conference, but for some of them, to do it on one side, but also support, you know, these huge, extreme, interesting possibilities that are opening up for people who cannot typically attend them. So what is the way ahead?
Difficult question. I think I'm with you, and I think Edward and I were talking about this before I started this talk. Like, I miss so much, you know, the way it used to be. And, you know, when you go into research, you know, from beyond the academic part of things, it is kind of a lifestyle. You kind of choose to travel, and you know that is part of the job. And most of us like to travel. And when you remove that from the equation, sometimes it's like you lose that incentive for your work, and that I miss. So yes, I'm with you. I want to go things back to normal, I will not, propose to continue go virtual. I like to travel. I like to have to face-to-face interactions. I like to be 100% in that moment and not be preoccupied with my son, baby, homeschooling, and all things happening here. And I think the new generation of individuals, they are very different from us. Now I'm revealing our age, but they born with this, platforms, and they are used to this, and they want, short information more rapidly, much more than we used to absorb and prefer to read a paper. But yes, we have, the other generation, more like us, and more senior generation that prefer to do things differently and prefer to read the complete paper perhaps, and have things in a physical manner. So you have to kind of balance both things. I'm not answering your question because I don't have an answer for this. I think it will be crazy to think a hybrid model. It's so much stress to organize a physical conference than to think to organize also a virtual one. How can you find volunteers with no incentives? So it will be crazy to organize and maintain that in long term. So we will have to choose. I don't think a hybrid model will work. And in trying to cover too much, you might end up being superficial. So I prefer to commit to one and make that one work instead of trying to work both things and not really making work one. So I don't have an answer. I think it is there's an age intergenerational thing happening here. But my answer at this point will be, we need to commit to one model. A hybrid model is too complicated. I don't think a benefit on that. And if it will be my decision, it will be the physical conference.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. All righty. I think we've lost everybody except the in crowd. So yeah, no, well, thank you so much. I totally agree. I look forward to the day when there's in-person gatherings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I tried something hybrid before with like those virtual robots. If
That's
you
right. They
remember
have the
this,
little roaming heads. Yeah, like
not the
I
same.
mean that ends up only working with like the minority of those who don't, right? But I think Nadir's point was like, there's actually a interesting crowd of those who are benefiting from this virtual thing. Like they weren't gonna go, and we're kind of uncovering that. That's interesting. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I agree. Who knows?
Yeah. Difficult, and very cost. I mean, that costs a lot of money. So, to go into this, I will say experiments, or I don't know, it's a lot of money that comes from the income pocket. So.
What we need is like these augmented reality glasses we all walk around the conference in, and then there's these like ghost bodies walking around, and we're walking around full tracking. They're in VR, we're in AR.
And that's when you get the Qualcomm 5G argument, right? Because if you do that today, you'll be like, oh, this is too heavy. I can't really wear it for such a long time. Or
And then we'll take
oh
it off, and then there's these ghosts that tries to talk to us, and we don't know what and then we just walk right through them.
Or I'm talking to a ghost, and the ghost is freezing and it's laggy, and I'm like, I'm gonna talk to an actual person for, oh my god, I can't really talk to ghosts.
Okay,
Okay, guys. Well, It was so nice to see you. I miss you, Danilo, Nadir.
Yeah, Monica, it's weird. Like
we should have a tequila shot soon.
we should have to take a shot soon. We worked for such a long time together, even though we're not in the physical same place.
Yeah,
But now, you know, it's so weird for me to recall it and realize, wait a second, we were not in the same place because we were so much in the Ubicomp island and so much in the same, you know, digital space. And I'm
right.
like, oh, that's true. She never left Mexico, never left the United States. What?
Yeah, I know. But hopefully we can meet in Cancun.
Yeah,
It's
Very
going
nice.
to be a fun one. Hopefully.
yeah. Wasn't it today Pfizer showed like 95%?
Yeah,
Uh,
95%. That's what I heard. So
and they have been producing their vaccines already, assuming they were going to get good results. So the researchers are doing a good job.
so hopefully something to look forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So guys,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.